Greetings once again, and welcome to the First Reformed Church in Guyana. My name is Andre Baksh, and I want to talk about the question we dealt with in the previous video. Is the Bible God's Word? Now, I concluded last time simply demonstrating that the reason why the Bible holds the claim of being the Word of God as opposed to the holy books of the other religions is that it is the only one that ever made the claim. Now, in addition to that, 600 years after the Bible, coming up in a response to the Bible and in some ways copying from the Bible, the Quran does make the claim, but because it came up afterward, it was simply copying from it. So what I want to do now is talk about letters, the origin and the production of new letters, and even the falling off of old letters in the English alphabet, and how that entire process of the creation of new letters and the losing of old letters affects Bible translations, and why you have to have a certain position of the Bible because of the development of language, and at the foundation of language is letters. And I want to talk about a couple of things. I met a pastor about let's say about a year and a half ago. The circumstances that led to us meeting is he's one of this King James onlyists kind of guy, and I am not. However, I do have a very high regard for the King James translation. I use that in my devotional prayer. But he said, when I told him we should meet and discuss this issue of the King James. He's from a fundamental Baptist church, and you know those guys are really strong going on their King James. So I asked him a simple question: which King James do you read? The reason why I asked him that is he said he doesn't want to shame me in front of anyone. So apparently he's so strong and he's so hard on his position that the King James is the only Bible that is the Word of God. And all the other rest are the words of Satan. So I'm reading my New King James or my NASB or my ESV, and he's saying those are the words of Satan. So when I asked him, let's talk about it, he's like, I don't want to shame you in front of anyone. I said, you know what? Which King James do you read? And it completely got him by surprise, because he thinks there's only one King James. So he said, the 1611 King James. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he does not have a 1611 King James. 17th and 18th century English is hard for us to read today, much less 1611. You know, the English is so different. There are letters in there that are so different. I want to give you guys a couple examples of letters that once were there in the English alphabet and is no longer there today. And the thing about it is some of those letters are in the original 1611 King James. So when they open their modern English King James Bibles, they have no idea that there's an entire school of King James from Oxford, and there's another entire school of King James from Cambridge. There's different years and there's different productions, and each one has differences in them. But they're taught to just regurgitate this argument. We have the 1611 King James. 1611 King James is the only Bible that you should use. For one, there are letters in there that most English readers today won't recognize. One of them is the long S. It looks like a funny F. If you read any old English text, you see a long F before some words where an S should be. Most English readers think it's an F. That's an S. The next one is the torn or thorn. Guyanese pronunciation of the TH sound is difficult. we can't pronounce like the Greek theos, the theta. We have a hard time pronouncing that. So the thorn, um, it's funny about the development of the letter thorn. So if you look at some older writings, and just like how you would see that long F, you will see a Y in places where a TH should be. So you would see D, ye, ye old barn, or ye old something. It's not a Y, it's a TH, it's a thorn. Now that's interesting because the so-called sacred name advocates who like to argue that the letter J is a recent production in the English language, it never existed in the time of Jesus. They like to argue that his name is Yeshua, and and if they want to use their argument that because J is a modern produced letter, you can't use it, well, then they can't use Y either, because Y wasn't a Y. It was a thorn. It was a TH sound. So if you want to drop the J and put the Y, to be accurate in English, you have to say Teshua or Theshua, because that's what the Y originally functioned as, a TH sound. Now, they will point to the upsilon in Greek and say, okay, here's a Y in an ancient language, a language of the Bible. That's not a Y, that's an upsilon. And the upsilon is a U, it gives you a U sound. The reason why the I, the iota from Greek, the reason why that I took on that little circle at the bottom to produce a J is the same reason why the upsilon and the thorn turned into a Y, because language changes over time. And some pronunciations are hard to bring over to other language. If you check ancient Latin and ancient Greek writings, there was an overusage of the iota, the iota, the I, because it had multiple functions. One of those functions was a J sound. So because it didn't have the curve at the bottom, it doesn't mean that the pronunciation wasn't there. We didn't have an equivalent in English, so we produced one. Same goes to the Y. So I'm going to give you all of the letters that are not original to the ancient language. G, J, U, W, and Y. Those are all modern additions. If you want to say the J is modern, those all fall into the category. So sacred name advocates, Hebrew root movements, Black Hebrew Israelites, all of you who have a problem with the letter J, you should equally have a problem with the letter Y. I don't have a problem with the letter Y because I don't have a problem with the letter J. So I don't have a problem saying Jesus. I don't have a problem saying Yeshua. I believe his name was Jesus in Greek because I believe the New Testament was written in Greek. Now, would it be okay to say Yeshua? I don't have a problem with that. Would it be okay to say Jesus? I don't have a problem with that. Why? Because both the J and the Y are newer than the iota, which had multiple functions in the ancient languages. So, with all of that, we just completely wrapped up the King James Only Advocates and the Sacred Name Advocates. Okay, let me give you some more letters that are that were once in the English alphabet that you're gonna see in old English writings that we can't pronounce if we see them today because they're no longer in use until you watch this video or some of the other videos like this, and now you learn to pronounce them, and maybe you can even start using them. Let's have a renaissance of some of these letters. So you have the long S, and you have the ampersand. That's another one that's still in use, but is not functioning as a letter anymore. It functions as an entire word, and per se, and so it's still on keyboards. It's still on it's still in use as a single letter that means and. The next one is F. F is similar to thorn. It gives you a TH sound, but a different kind of a TH sound. So you see, you can have You can have a sound in English that is pronounced slightly different in the same English, and you have a different letter for that sound. Those are how letters, that's the way letters are produced. That's how you come up with new letters, which J is one and Y is one. So to all of you out there who like to say you read a 1611 King James, you don't read a 1611 King James. You can't read a 1611 King James because it's difficult to read unless you know of these letters. And if I open your King James and it doesn't have these letters in them, guess what? It's not a 1611 King James. It's probably a 19th or a 20th century King James, which is totally different. You want to know why? 1611 King James has the Apocrypha in it also. Your King James doesn't have the Apocrypha in it. So all I have to say, don't say you have a 1611 King James. You don't have one. You have a modern King James, which is different from the 1611 King James. Now, my argument is, if the King James can upgrade, why can't the NASB? That's my argument. Why can't the ESV? Why can't the RSV? You know, and this new one, the Legacy Standard Bible, why can't we have that? If the King James can upgrade, and it was upgraded multiple times, you know, now that you know, go and check it out and see. And those of you who are sacred name advocates and Hebrew Roots Movement and Black Hebrew Israelites, if your argument is that you can't say Jesus because J is new, well, then you can't say Yeshua because Y is new. Y is originally a thorn in English. It gives you a TH sound. And don't point me to Latin and to Greek. That's an upsilon. That's a U sound. So your argument is that you can't use J. Well, then by your own standard, you can't use Y, because both of them weren't around. It was an iota that was in the front of his name, of Christ's name, Jesus Christos. That was what his name. Because that I produced a J sound, that's why we put that circle beneath the I, to give you the J sound. Because the TH was so hard to differentiate from the upsilon, it became Y. To upsilon went its own way, TH went its own way, and then Y went its own way, because that's another way of pronouncing iota. So okay, that's my argument. That's my argument. If J can't work, Y can't work either. The other one, Ash. So that one was F. Now we have Ash. That's it's a combination of a sound between A and E. So it's basically a crushing together of A and E to produce one letter. Ethel, it gives you a long E, like in the word fetus. That's one of the words, that one of the letters that was there that's not there anymore. Win, we didn't have an equivalent to the W sound in English. So win was proposed and was used for a short period of time, until putting two upsilons together, double upsilon or W, which you will see it sometimes as a double V, or which in that, and that V in Greek is really an N. It's really an N. So that one letter functions as U, V, and N. So other letters had to come to separate out those pronunciations, and we went with a double V instead of the win. We went with a double V to basically two V's give you a W instead of the win. That's one that used to be used. Yog, right? That's hard to pronounce in Guyanese English. YOGH, right? That's the spelling of the pronunciation of the letter. It looks something like a tree, like a numeral tree. It's the noise that you pronounce at the back of your throat when you say words like Bach or Loch Ness Monster. You know, some of those sacred name advocates, they like to say you have to pronounce those guys' names in the original, and they can't for the life of me. They can't say Yochanan. They say Yochanan. And so they like to argue that you have to pronounce these guys' names a certain way, and they don't take the time to learn how to pronounce those guys' names. You know, they don't take the time. They just have this problem with the letter J, but they don't realize the same argument destroys the letter Y. And don't point me to the Yud in Aramaic or in Hebrew. Um, it functions as the iota in Greek. It had multiple pronunciations. You just have a problem with Jesus, and that's a spiritual problem. That's not a grammatic or a linguistic problem. That's a spiritual problem. You have a problem with Jesus, right? You have a problem with the Son of God. Eng, that's um that's a combination of the ng sound. That's not there anymore. You know, all of these are letters that used to be there um in the English alphabet. And G, J, U, W, and Y, they were not there. They were all added. They all formed to give us pronunciations of letters that had multiple pronunciations. Now, Y is a valid letter. It's okay to say Yahweh or Yeshua. But J is a valid letter also. It's okay to say Jesus or Yahweh or Javeh. They're all acceptable. You know what? Ancient Hebrew pronunciation is lost. It is lost. Ancient Greek pronunciation is lost. The pronunciations we use when we read, for example, when we read this is a Greek text. When I read the pronunciation I use when I read this most likely wasn't the pronunciation that was there. It probably sounded closer to what modern Greek sounds like. But when I would say alpha, beta, gamma, delta in modern Greek, they say alpha, beta, gamma, delta. So and that's a B, and it's pronounced as V in modern Greek. Those ancient pronunciations are lost. They are lost. Now, modern scholars gave us pronunciation of this Greek and of your Yahweh and Jahveh and Jehovah. Why do you argue for one over the other? They're all modern. No, God doesn't throw a fit over it. You know what? You have to learn something called the Numina Sacra. This is gonna shoot your arguments right out of the water. The Numina, you know what the Numina Sacra is? The sacred name. You know what that is? They don't of all of the manuscripts we have. Let's say of the New Testament, 5,300, 5,700. We keep discovering manuscripts every day. You know what? They don't even spell names of the divine persons. For Jesus, they just put the first and last letter. For Yahweh, they just put the first and the last letter. Sometimes they just put the capital of the first letter all over, or you see a stroke. You see the first letter and a stroke, or underline or a line above it or something. That's what you see. You don't even see the spelling that you guys are arguing for. You don't even see the complete Jesus Christos. You don't even see that sometimes. You just see the name sometimes. Sorry, you just see the letter, the first and the last letter. So Kai Ro, right? Or Ki Ro. The X with the P is actually a CH with a R. That symbol that represents Christ. You know, sometimes people say Christmas or Xmas. That X is actually a CH. It's a K, like Christ or Christos. Sometimes you see just the key and the row. That's all you see in the manuscripts. Sometimes you see just the Yud, and they will put a line above it. I think it's above it or under it. I have to check back. I don't have any here. But they put a line on a letter, and that's a line and a letter, and that's all you have, and that's all you have to work with. Christ and any member of the Trinity, they don't throw a fit over that. Why should you? Sacred Name Advocates, Hebrew Roots Movement, Black Hebrew Israelites, or you Jehovah's Witnesses, or you Texas Receptors Advocates or Byzantine Text Advocates. Christ doesn't throw a fit over it. Christ gave us all. He gave us the eclectic text. He gave us the majority text. Why? So that we can consult all of them. It is better to consult all of them than to make an irrational argument for one letter over another when both had a creation date. One manuscript over another when both came through the same historic process. One translation over another when both went through the same translation methodology and philosophy. It doesn't make sense. Anyway, folks, this is just setting up to go into the whole issue of transmission and translation of the Bible, because all of the arguments against the Bible comes down to basically, well, the Bible has been corrupted. If you see any person from a different religion arguing against the Bible, it basically comes down to they don't believe the Bible is true. I'll give you an example. The Muslims like to ask for a verse in the Bible where Jesus say, I am God, or I am or worship me, or I am the Almighty. You know, they want to see a verse that says that. Now it's unfair to ask that question because they would never ever ask that of the Quran. But I'll give them a verse. Revelation 1:18. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the last, the one who was and is to come, the Almighty. Christ himself called himself the Almighty. So you asked for it, I gave you it. What's your response? Well, the Bible has been corrupted. So so their argument really comes down to they don't believe the Bible. It's not like they really want a verse. You know, John chapter 1:1-14. In the beginning was the Word, the Logos, and the Word was with God. Clearly a distinction between the Logos and God. And the Word was God. Clearly a unity between the Word and God. So the Word was with God and the Word was also God. How can this be? Look at the book of Psalms. Therefore God, your God. So David is speaking to someone called God and telling him about his God. Clearly there is a separation in the Trinity, a distinction of persons, but there is also a unity of being. That is what the Bible teaches. There are multiple verses that teaches that. What do you say in response to that? Well, those verses have been corrupted. So the real issue is that they don't believe the Bible. They believe the verses have been corrupted. That's the reason for this video. And then we'll get into the Bible. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in. And look out for part 3 coming up pretty soon. The Lord bless you and the Lord keep you. And the Lord be with you. Until you see me again, take care and God bless.